Assail, Book 6 of Esslemont's Novels of the Malazan Empire. Mwah. Join me to find out why. Thanks for joining me today as I talk about my review, Spoiler-Lite, of Assail by Ian C. Esslemont, which came out in August 2014. I'm Jim, the father of this show, Fantasy for the Ages, that I do with my son Zach. Check out all our other videos here on fantasy, science fiction, horror, and other nerdy things. And we hope you'll enjoy this one. Give us a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. This is the final book of Esslemont's series, 6 books, Novels of the Malazan Empire. I began this series while I was reading Stephen Erickson's 10-book saga, Malazan Book of the Fallen. I consumed the first 2 of this series where they fit within the flow of time of those other 10 books. That really is how they're intended to fall. This series complements the other one, adds depth and extra information to things that Erickson was putting out there as they jointly came up with the ideas of this incredible Malazan world. The final 4 books of the series fit best after you've completed Malazan Book of the Fallen, and that's how I've read them. But it was no great effort to continue to read them. These just are fantastic. It's like an excellent cherry on top of the sweet treat of reading all things Malazan. Not that I've read all things Malazan, there's more to come, but this is another completion point. The genre, of course, is still epic fantasy, and so epic it is. What are we talking about here for Assail? Well, there are 4 primary motivations that are in play here, much of which flow from previous books, including Erickson's Malazan Book of the Fallen series. First, we've got the Crimson Guard. They're here on Assail to get answers, things that their leader, Kaaz, knows, but thinks they are all better off not knowing. Secondly, we've got various people from all the other continents around the world that we've met through the various books coming here for a gold rush. There's been gold found in them there hills. Yeah, outsiders are pushing into this territory, which has been remote and ignored for a long time. This is not a place used to visitors, and they're feeling the pain. Number 3, there's actually indigenous people who live here, and they are not cool with all these visitors. This is actually a theme that carries over from the previous book, Blood and Bone, but in new ways, and they're not comfortable with outsiders for other reasons than in the previous book. But this leads to a significant amount of conflict, especially the big conflict that becomes a focus later in the book. And finally, there are 2 groups of Talana Mas here on this continent. The main contingent are those that are with Silver Fox, who we met way back in Malazan Book of the Fallen, and she led her Talana Mas away. She, the last Emas Bonecaster, and the first of flesh and blood in thousands of years. Silver Fox is an amazing character, but you have to understand how she came about from reading elsewhere. But here in this book, we've got her on her mission with the group of Emas that follow her, the majority. But then there's another group of Emas here that are still rogue. They don't want to follow Silver Fox. Maybe some of them would, but they're led by a few that don't. They're still here on a mission to destroy the Jagat, with devastating results. As with all these Malazan novels, the various plot lines are all going to converge eventually, and they do it here in a marvelous and world-shaking manner. The novel's setting is, as I said, the continent of Assail. That's why the book is named Assail. Nothing else we've experienced in the prior books of Malazan Book of the Fallen or Esslemont's series here have taken us to this location, so this is our first time meeting this new continent. We are certainly familiar with Assail from the group of, not persons really, but beings called the Forkrul Assail. We've seen them in other books of Malazan Book of the Fallen, and particularly prominent in The Crippled God. So it's logical to wonder if there's a connection between Assail, the place, and the Fork rule Assail. You'll have to read to find out. This land, though, it is a mostly forbidding and unforgiving land, with those who are indigenous not in contact with the outside world, pretty much cut off and quite content that way. Those few settlers who have come over the years and made this continent their home, they're just scraping by. It is not a place of wealth and luxury. A unique part of the geography of this continent is that much of the exterior coast is very unwelcoming. Not a lot of places to put in, not a whole bunch of ports, but there's some interior navigable passages where you can get deep into the center of the continent coming around from the east side. However, I use the word navigable very generously because barely navigable, and many ships see their end trying to get into the interior of the continent. This story really is half a sea adventure as people are sailing to and into the continent and their experiences with some of the places they find to put up on shore. And then the rest of the time, it's a trek into this land of many dangers. As for the time, the setting of this book, it occurs just a short while after the events recorded in the previous one, Blood and Bone. There's been a little passing of time, but just enough so that our through point, the Crimson Guard, who learned at the end of the last book that there are answers to be found in Assail, were able to get their act together, get off a mission, and head over to this continent. So we start the book as they begin that journey. And that's a big part of what this is, the mission to find those answers, and then a whole bunch of other critical events that are going to happen along the way to them and to other characters that we meet. I love the setting. Again, complex, wonderful, so detailed, what he does with the geography. 5 out of 5. The plot, oh my goodness. Esslemont has delivered again on what we come to expect from the depth of Malazan novels. We've got all sorts of things going on here. Many different characters and plot lines, with the events of today woven into events from thousands of years ago, still in relevant ways. We've also got characters and events that flow back from previous books, even all the way to Gardens of the Moon, having distinct relevance to today's happenings. Yet everything seems perfectly sensible and logical as the story unfolds, revelations and all. And there are indeed some key revelations in this story. Next level revelations. You get answers here, people. And this, I mean, some of it, I got to tell you. Okay, the biggest one. How did I not previously note the similarity between the Crimson Guard and... Okay, I can't really say that. Spoiler-Lite! If you haven't read it, that would be too much. But if you know, you know. And that's just one of the revelations we get in this book. Man, 5 out of 5 again for plot depth. Amazing what Esslemont has put together here. Now, as to characters, I've already touched on some aspects of the characters in my summary, pointing out the groups that are the primary players here. In each and every case, Esslemont gives us fully fleshed out individuals with motivations and emotions that understandably drive their decisions in a way the reader can relate to. Despite the fantastical nature of the story, everyone seems just so real. I don't know how he does this. I could never write with such skill. I am a little bit in awe. I have a number of favorite characters that are real highlights of this reading experience that come from each of the groups. As to the Crimson Guard, the ones that really stand out for me that I enjoyed reading the most were Shimmer and Bars. Their story here is just incredible. And then, from these other various groups coming from all over, we end up with Fisher and Jethus. So excellent to get more of our bard Fisher, who we had quotes from in the very first book of Malazan. He's this well-renowned bard that everybody knows the stories and songs of Fisher. And now we understand why. Okay, we get so much more of him in this book, and it's excellent to have. But of course, Jethus, what a character. Because it's spoiler light, that's about all I can tell you of Jethus. I mean, I will point out he's Tistiandii. He's our only Tistiandii in this book. But it is important that he's here, that he's a representative, and he's so relevant. And then, of course, from the Talana Moss groups, we've got Silver Fox and Pran Cole, her closest advisor amongst the Amas, and protector. Regarding Silver Fox, I can admit I really didn't fully understand her, what her character was all about when she was introduced in the core series of Malazan Book of the Fallen. This book opened up my understanding incredibly well. It made so much more sense now. And Esslemont has done that for things from Malazan Book of the Fallen in numerous ways for me, which has helped me appreciate the series that much more. Now I truly understand what Silver Fox meant to the Taladamas, the role she plays, and how that's related to the Redeemer, Ikovian, and how much their situation improves because of that whole experience in Malazan Book of the Fallen, and now the mission that they're on here. It's just marvelous. Then there's the various holders, the natives of the land here, of the north, of Assail, and none of them were really a favorite of mine. That was the least interesting element of the story, despite it being highly significant. I'm not saying I didn't enjoy it, but standout characters, not so much. But then, one that's kind of related to those characters, but it's related to so many things. Probably my favorite character from the book is Kyle. We followed this young man who's gotten older, who's grown up through multiple books. The novels of the Malazan Empire are partly Kyle's story, and I thoroughly enjoyed his role in this novel. Character work is, again, exceptional and gets a 5 out of 5 from me. As for the writing style, there's not much to say about Esslemont's style that I haven't already said. I'll double down here on how exceptionally he develops characters, with unique and significant plots that all end up interwoven just brilliantly. I appreciate the pacing of his narration in that he frequently jumps between various characters and POVs, so you never really forget about anyone. You keep getting little updates all the way through, just enough to keep you interested and engaged for what's happening to everyone, and having it all flow together in a way that makes sense. You stay up with the action of all these multiple groups at the same time. You're never going, well, what happened to so-and-so? Nope, there's another update coming pretty darn soon. I guess the other thing that jumps out for me from this book is how well Esslemont incorporated a vast variety of danger and combat, from actual warfare to sorcerous attacks to even continental devastation, and all of it is written beautifully. 5 out of 5 for Esslemont. Again, I'm a little in awe. There are a number of themes I could draw from this. I'll give you just a few. All that glitters is not gold. Some of the characters in this story are clearly driven by greed or the desire to advance themselves through the hitting it big of a gold strike. Others stand ready to take advantage of such folks. Pursuing gold to make your fortune is kind of symbolic of trying for the easy fix rather than really putting in the work. And if that's what your character's primary drive is, you're never gonna find enough. You're never gonna hit it truly big. You will never get happy that way. The theme is true happiness comes from elsewhere. Also, the ends do not justify the means. We see this emphasized in numerous ways, most especially driven home in this book by the rogue Talanamas. Identity and redemption is a joint theme here. Numerous characters fight in this book to find themselves, or find themselves anew, or redeem themselves from past decisions. The theme of redemption and its lasting impact on the way characters proceed through life is prominent. Fate and free will is another one that's on full display here, and that's been a big one throughout all the Malazan books. What part of your circumstances and choices are driven by destiny versus what do you actually control? Do you control anything? Events of this story question much of what characters have believed. Final theme I'll highlight is united we stand, divided we fall. There are various opportunities for people, for groups to band together or to stay on their own in this novel, with both choices leading to varied consequences. The book explores the significance of making such a choice, getting together or going on your own, and certainly leans towards the power of building bridges over that of walls of division. It's such a great book. When I try to think of warnings for this one, I mean, the most prominent warning is people die. Okay, a lot of people die because there's violence, there's combat, but the book really doesn't lean into the deaths. They just happen. Despite some of them being very violent in nature, it's done and over. We don't dwell. It's not like Grimdark, nothing like that. Just be aware there's going to be some deaths. As for my recommendation and overall rating for this was a deeply satisfying novel, both for how it concluded the 6-book series Esslemont has put forward, but also for its rich additions to what we learned in Malazan Book of the Fallen. I understand those books better because of these, and especially because of Assail. Not only did it enrich my understanding, it extended the story for a few key treasured characters in wonderful ways, especially the Crimson Guard as a group. I loved this book and give it an overall 5 out of 5. All right, that's where I'll leave you today. I hope you're enjoying a Malazan journey as well. Perhaps you already have, and now you're seeing this and remembering how much you loved this book. Wherever you are in it, I'd love to hear your thoughts on Assail, on my thoughts on Assail. That's what the comment box is for. Put your things down there and I will respond. I always appreciate those of you who take the time to do so. Also, look down in the show notes. You can find all sorts of ways that you can interact with Zach and I, an invitation to our Discord server, our social media, and you can send us email and I'll respond to that too. Thanks for joining me today. We'll talk to you next time.